Okay, Carlos, we're ready to start. All right, everybody ready? All right, good. We'll call tonight's City of Olivet's Comprehensive Plan Update for October 12th, 2023 to order. Carlos, will you please call the roll?
Present.
Here. 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 Present.
Okay, so you can Karen.
Yep. Okay, well, then I'm present.
Here you go.
Present.
Ms. Hodge. Mr. Perkins. Here. Mr. Patterson.
Here.
Then I'll let the minutes reflect on the staff side. We have Ms. Doty, city manager, Jackery, myself, Carlos, our planning director, and then our consultant, Beth.
Good evening. So this is where you sit when you're given the choice. Just wanted to see. Not too many radical changes, except for Annie really going rogue with the sitting close to the teacher. So try not to call on Annie too much tonight. All right, so this is our final meeting. So it won't be the last time that we see each other, but this is our final meeting as a group. So the purpose with our meeting tonight is to, the first two bullets on here about seeing the results of the strategy survey and then looking at the final goals and strategies for the plan, they really go together. So you've seen the goals before. You've seen the a version of strategies before. They've been refined a little bit since you last saw them. So we're going to take a look at those and keep the strategy survey results in mind. So we'll go through, as we go through the goals, we'll share the results that are relevant from the strategy survey with you, and that's what's in your handout. So I'll have you have a copy of the PowerPoint that I'll have up here. The print on the survey results is going to get a little bit small to look at on the screen, so your handout should help you out there. Yeah, and the city done printed it nice and big too, so that definitely helps. So the bulk of our meeting tonight is really going to be spent going through those goals and strategies and making sure that they look good to you and you're comfortable with them, because they're what we will share with the public when we have a meeting November 30th. So that will be the bulk of our meeting. And then we'll talk about our process that will take us through adoption of the plan. And I'm going to end the meeting tonight. I'm going to tell you what we're going to do, because you can think about it a little bit. Since this is our last time meeting together as a group, I'm going to ask you each to tell me what you think is what are you most excited about in the plan, and why. So we'll close the meeting tonight with that question. And I'll ask each one of you to share that with the group. So you can be thinking about that a little bit as we move forward. So any questions about what we're up to tonight? Yeah, Jim.
I do have a question on the plan. Is this 23 and 24? Is that what this one is?
In terms of the years, like,
Yes.
yeah.
So it starts this October. It's not previous stuff. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So the idea is to move toward adoption in February of 2024.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So this extends out, that we're going to extend out a little bit from our original. We were running into the holidays, and this gives, I think, the public comment period gives staff a little bit more breathing room to move through the edit process. So that's how we landed a little bit later than we had originally envisioned, but I think it's good. I think it makes the process a little bit better. But we'll talk about that a little bit more toward the end. So this is our process diagram. Let's see. Oh, I just realized I'm not quite in what I thought I was in. So we might need to. Okay. Move that. Okay, thank you. Sure. Okay, so this is the process diagram that you have seen before. So the good news is we are way over here. So we've been through the strategy survey is the aside from the open house that we'll have at the end of November, that's the last piece of public input that we're really processing to make the recommendations. So that the survey is technically it's not closed, it's still open because we're pushing still some targeted communications to some missing groups, but we're not promoting it to general audiences anymore. So technically it's it's still open if you know people. And how many have done this survey, or is there anybody who has not? Oh my gosh. So there's still time. There's still time. And we still want you to do it. So there's still some time. So please do it. And thank you for your honesty, really, in sharing that with us.
That'll be brave.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know. It's just, you can tell you feel comfortable with this group. No, that's good. So,
I used to.
yeah. So these are the chapters of the plan. When you final document is going to have these chapters, and the chapters, you might recall, come from really best practices in planning. These are the areas that the American Planning Association recommends that you include in your plan. So we started with that really as a foundation for how you were structuring the plan. And then started building on that with our goals. So the plan document, the plan document itself, which will be developed really during the month of December, the way our new schedules or adjusted schedule lays out. When you see that plan document, it's going to be organized by these chapters and these goals. So I won't spend a lot of time on the goals here because we're going to talk about each of them, but just to remind you of like what that structure is going to look like. Okay, so let's start getting into these goals. And so this is the part where probably it's going to be a little bit easier for you to follow along in your handout because my print is pretty small. But I'm going to look at the handout too, so I'm not flipping around to look at the screen. So the first goal, encourage high quality housing that is diverse in terms of type and price. We've heard quite a bit about this topic from the public. So in the vision and issues, in the engagement results from that, not only the survey, but also online activities and comments at our public meeting, we heard these things. But the overall, and as an overall community challenge, when we asked that question, housing affordability was identified as Olivet's second greatest challenge overall, behind restaurant and entertainment options. Are you trying to get me into presentation mode? Okay. Oh, thank you. And then we also heard, when we asked about the top features of a thriving neighborhood, we heard that the overall feeling of safety was important, having clean or well-maintained properties, green spaces and parks, and having shops and services within walking distance. So in the strategy survey, we followed up on some of those issues and we asked about different strategies to address housing affordability. And some of those strategies were on the survey were indicated as some that would cost money. And so the city would either have to shift some resources around or come up with new revenue sources to pay for them. So they were noted with in the responses. And there was definitely more support for strategies that did not utilize city funds and that encourage smaller homes. So some of the strategies that we had offered as options that were more popular were replacing or reducing the number of smaller homes that get replaced by larger ones, incentivizing development that offers attainable housing, and then having a renter's bill of rights to protect the rights of renters. We asked a question specifically about infill housing and whether people were concerned about that. About 35% of those who answered said, "I'm not concerned about infill housing." The next question said, okay, for those people who did indicate that they were concerned about infill housing, which was majority, what do you think the city should do about it? And it offered 3 kind of general directions for what the city could, how policy could be directed around infill housing. 70% said that they wanted the solution to infill housing to involve more regulation to manage its size and impact. And so like the choices on the survey were like, manage it a little bit more to manage size and impact. Don't do anything different, just keep going the way you're going. Or let's see, what was the other option in the survey? Just keep it going. I brought the survey for this reason. But this was sort of the middle of the road course where there is more regulation on size and impact, but you do still, I think the other option was to prohibit it, to prohibit infill housing. So this was like the middle. Yeah, Carol.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we define infill housing when it comes to Olivet. Because my thinking about the term is usually in a more dense environment, so I'm not sure what we mean about it in our particular situation.
So we were
Can you give me an example of what would be infill housing?
infill housing, and so it's really any redevelopment of housing. So if
So,
you,
okay, so that's different. than
So it includes tear downs?
it is,
Okay.
but we didn't
Okay.
call it tear downs in the survey because that's such a charged word. So we used the term infill housing.
Okay, so you're talking about housing that's been redeveloped housing, not the classic infill housing. I think.
You don't have vacant lots, so it's, you know,
Right.
yeah,
Well, so
it's more redeveloped housing. I think you
Okay.
could, in this context, that's how it, how it shakes out,
words
yeah.
are used. Okay, that makes a difference.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's the context, and we'll talk about the strategies that these set up, but yeah, Stephanie.
So Carol brought up a good point, because I interpreted is, you know, when there's a house and you tear it down and put up a new one. I know you didn't want to use the word tear down, but that's that's all we have. Like you said, we have no vacant
Mhm.
lots. And but Carol brings up a good point, because it wasn't defined anywhere in the survey. So people, I don't know how people interpreted it. So I
Mhm.
don't know if
Pull it up, yeah, or I was gonna say, Dawn, do you have paper ones at the front desk? We can look at that too.
because I think the survey
just for the-
initially said, do you want, or are you okay, or, you know, do you want more or less in, I thought it actually used that term.
We'll look at the exact wording, but I think what my takeaway from it was that, and it was consistent with what we've heard on other like open-ended survey responses, like that there's some discomfort with some of the tear downs and the bigger houses replacing smaller houses, that so bigger houses taking up more of a lot, causing potentially issues for those around them in terms of drainage and things, and just pricing people out of Olivet. I mean, I think that's what's captured here. And so I think a majority of people indicate, I think that took the survey, have a concern about that. And those that do have a concern feel like they would be amenable to having more regulation. Yes, Jennifer, it looks like you're about to say something.
I am about to say
Yes.
something. So the concept of infill housing, tear down housing, this particular concept of regulation, does it also envision, say, an existing home doing a significant addition? Like, is that part of the concept? Is that, are residents concerned about additions to homes or just new homes?
I think we didn't parse the question in that way. I think that if I was going to just interpret, and Carlos and Don would know better just because they work in the community all the time and others here, but I think it's about the scale. You know, I think, I mean, I'm in Kirkwood and we worry about this all the time in Kirkwood. I mean, it's like, where are the small houses now? You know, like, we can't build a small house in Kirkwood. We just knock down the ones that are, you know, moderate, and we build McMansions, like so I think it's that.
That's that term, that McMansion's an adjective, and it's a negative adjective that you hear in the Post or
Mm,
the Times or the Journal, something like that. They're not
Mhm.
professional descriptions as to what the actual
Sure,
conduct is, and that it's sensitive, you know, and which is correct. Do you use, you know, tear downs because it evokes emotion, or do you call it you know,
We tried
infill?
to-
We know
we-
it is infill
yeah,
professional.
we tried to be neutral. Don, what does the,
It actually does discuss the context, and it specifies that infill housing is new homes replacing existing homes. It also puts in context the what the issues are, if it's size, if it's height. And that as and not really density, because it's just like, you know, it doesn't express whether it's multifamily. It kind of assumes that it's a single family of a new home existing or replacing. existing.
To me, infill housing would be putting housing on vacant lots along Olive Street Road. That would be infill. Or, but redeveloped housing is,
so the question focused on replacing one house with another house. And we tried to take we didn't say replacing, I think I had a draft actually that said replacing small houses with large. And when the city folks edited it for me, they were like, let's not do that, you know, because it anticipates a response. So we tried to neutralize the language, but talk about replacement.
I would
housing.
just suggest that in the plan document, you don't call it that, because I know I would find it very confusing.
Okay,
And I think the planning commission would also, because we refer to it as redeveloped housing.
so redeveloped housing instead of infill.
Yeah,
Okay. So that's background really to get you, and then the other note just on what we heard from public opinion, and then we'll switch to like, how do we address this in the strategies? We asked about density and how supportive respondents were about denser development. And we defined in sort of a neutral way what density was, you know, that it was more people living on a given amount of space. There was some more support for mixed use retail and residential building, more so than duplexes and townhomes, and the least support for large apartment complexes. So no surprises there, I don't think, what you would have expected. So let's look at the strategies then for this goal.
Strategies that will end up in the document,
Yeah.
or is it, okay,
Yep, these are strategies that would end up in the document.
all right.
So for this goal of encouraging high quality housing that's diverse in terms of type and price, these are the three strategies that we've identified. And then I want to tell you about your handout. So the strategies are furthering equitable and accessible housing for all groups and ages, providing opportunities to accommodate generational housing needs, and pursuing policies to maintain affordability. So in the handout that you have, it tells you underneath each of the strategies, it gives you some sample actions. So make sure we're all in the same place here. Looks like this document. So it has the goals and the strategies, and then there are bullets under all the strategies. And this document's important. I want you to look at it as we go along, because the, strategies are very broad. And so we wanted to share some of the thinking about the types of actions that would go underneath each of the strategies. Does everybody see what we're doing?
no.
So, okay,
mine
so you
doesn't
have two handouts. You've got I'm not sure. So one's,
Oh, okay. Okay, I got it.
yeah,
I got it.
let me see. Okay, yeah, Don will go around and make sure everybody's looking at the same thing. So as you're looking at these strategies, we want you to look at the document that has these bullets underneath the strategies. So you can see the types of actions that would or ideas that would be shared in the plan to address that strategy. So these are ideas for actions. They're not, we're going to be really careful with this in the plan document about how we present these things because we don't want to commit future staff members, future PCDC members, future council to specific actions. But we are going to offer some ideas for implementation in the plan to help folks understand what the strategies are trying to do.
So to clarify, and that was my question, these have no teeth. And we're trying to be purposely vague to give guidance or direction. So then if PCDC wants to take one of these up and say, we want to actually put together a policy that actually increases the housing by creating incentives or requiring this, or it gives us that, because my concern is these are great ideas and I support all of them and actually want all of them, but I want the teeth behind them to actually make the change. Because otherwise it's, you know, great, we all want this, but no one's willing to actually do the sacrifice of the steps. So I'm wondering how we get that. And we don't have to solve it now, but I just wanted to clarify that the plan is purposely going to give ideas, but then
Right.
the council and PCDC take action on those if we
Right.
want.
Right,
Okay.
right. Is that a
We'll
good?
have to further investigate strategies, and it might be changing, like, let's say for larger apartments over a certain size, they need to have at least 10 to 20% maintained at a certain threshold or, you know.
And I'm
rent
all
threshold.
for that. I just wanted to make sure that that's where we have that responsibility versus the plan. And I understand why, because you'd be locked in otherwise.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
One thing that I have noticed is that in the last plan, there was a lot of attention paid to the Ollie Street corridor. Right now, there is a complete section in the ordinance for the Ollie Street corridor. In today's world, section 425 does not have it gives PCDC a great deal of latitude in terms of sort of guidelines. And should we be saying something from a strategy standpoint that we codify? We want to work toward codifying the residential side as well as the commercial side.
I think that's implied because that's how you do it. You know, there might be other strategies that we have, but we got to be careful that we don't pin ourselves into a corner too, and not necessarily be able to implement some of these items as well. These are all strategies. These are different ideas. Some are going to work better than others. We just
Sure.
have to further investigate.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just
yes.
from a standpoint of what the plan is and how it will be used by city council and all the committees, et cetera, it's a touchstone. It's something to, whenever you have an idea and you put forth an idea for an ordinance or law or whatever, does it fit the plan? So I think that's how this is going to be used, and putting teeth into it at this point, I think is, I know where you're going with it, but I think it's, I don't think it's relevant right now at this point.
And I
Because
don't
it's up
disagree.
to,
I just wanted to clarify that this is more directional, and to your point,
yes,
it's a guiding principle that then the different groups can use to make change based off this, refer back to it.
exactly. They can use it or not,
Yep.
or whatever, but
It's something we always check. It's a check and balance, but I agree. The teeth would make, because the problem is something we put in now wouldn't apply 10 years from now. And if we're holding to it 10 years from now, that's not great.
exactly. I agree.
Agreed.
Okay, this is just my 2 cents then. So if these are gonna be our guiding principles, we're not gonna get into the teeth today. In here, the language is like further equitable, provide opportunities, pursue policies. These are all kind of like ambiguous terms, are not really like measurable. So does that, would that then leave us open to like, oh, this, it is somewhat furthering, or should we have like more,
That's
a
what
little bit of teeth, but like some, I don't know, should this, I don't know.
I think that's where
I'm
some of
trying to
these-
make sure I understand, and then we're not just making it too vague. like some kind of benchmarks,
But I think
because
that's
these are
where
great
some of these
ideas,
strategies
but
come in, right? That was the goal of some of
Okay.
these, is there a step down on
Uh-huh.
those? Cause I
A step
agree.
down from the goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, and then the bullets are, I would say, they're ways that the strategy comes to life. And so we're gonna present them as in the plan as ideas for implementation. But not action steps in a certain year. So what I hear you saying is, and I'm gonna just put it out to the group because it's really for this group and for the city to decide, like, measurable. Sometimes you put, it's more common to have measures in a strategic plan where you're saying, this is a plan for 1 year, or this is a plan for 3 years. But you can consider, are there some measures that we want to put into this plan?
that based just on like, if we want to have a certain standard for like quality of these kinds of further and provide and pursue, we know that the benchmark is going to move in like 10 or 15 or 20 years. So if
Mhm.
we're always, I don't know if it's making sense what I'm saying. I'm sorry. So if we put in some kind of measurements now that are universal, then wouldn't they hold up a little bit better? Does that make sense?
Like if you're saying you want to increase, like just using this example, you want to increase the number of housing units that are defined as attainable for the median income, or something, like you want to have some kind of a threshold or goal or something that's defined. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
if those stats exist.
Well, it's there, yeah, you have to decide exactly how you're gonna measure and what you're gonna measure. But again, I think it's a little more common in strategic plans when there are concrete actions, but but it's still worth, like, throw it out. What do others think about that?
Hey.
Carol,
So I think I can answer your question. I think it's a good one. Okay, but one of the things that we're doing here is we're setting our priorities as a city. And so if somebody comes to us with an idea, but it isn't on our list of priorities, it doesn't matter if it accomplishes what it's set out to do, it's not in our plan. And so this says to us, these are our priorities for action. And if it isn't there, it's not one of our priorities on the list. And that in and of itself is huge. We have to measure and determine each action when it comes before us based on what our resources are. It may not be a lot, but it may be as much as we're gonna do right now. So that's better than not doing anything. And then we just have to make that judgment call. If, somebody's looking at implementing our plan, and Brian's right, it could be easily 10, 15 years from now. Whatever measures we put in place today are gonna be totally wrong. But the priorities for our community won't have changed as far as our plan goes. So it guides us as our decisions evolve. Is that a good answer?
I think it's a good answer. Priorities are more evergreen and they're gonna last, and they're not gonna be as subject to change as something that's a more concrete action item. Yeah.
So we talk in terms of type and price. The first strategy relates to accessibility and equity.
Mhm.
Second one, sort of the intergenerational housing. The third is affordability. I'm wondering, do we need to say something about the environment with this? Because that comes into high quality and type. And I'm wondering if there's a strategy that we could. Well, there was an environment, it was resilient. I looked forward, maybe I missed it, but we had one that ensure reliable, efficient and sustainable infrastructure, but we don't talk about sort of the environment around this type of housing. That was, and if it's covered someplace else, that's fine, but I think we need to talk about what we're doing in terms of our environment as well. Someplace as a strategy.
Mhm. Okay,
Well, sustainable materials, I mean, we talk about, you take a house and you clear cut a lot or something like that, bringing it back to some level of something. But just to have something about the environment around this house as well as the housing and the prices, that would be my only. And I'm
Okay.
not quite sure that I'm articulating
you're
it.
good.
When you
I'm-
speak of environment, are you talking about neighbors, neighborhoods, or the actual environment like earth, wind, water?
Yes, both.
So. In the separate handout, which gets into more specifics of the details. Jim, you'll see it as the bottom bullet point on that cover page. I printed out the wrong one, so I apologize, because there are 3 strategies here. Here there were 2. So we did break
Oh,
up.
there's a third, okay.
Correct.
Yeah, I did, okay.
And I understand, and I apologize.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay,
mhm. She's at the contribution right now, yes.
okay,
So there was 2 things that addressed the comments you had. One is about support energy efficiency and carbon neutral construction, that our policies and our regulations as we draft those should do that. And then looking at the preserving the natural occurring affordable housing stock
right.
in there. So
Okay, I missed the.
no,
Strategy
it's a
3
good
was
point. I'm
meant-
glad. I think it's like the strategy.
So should we just look at the handout that you're putting out now, Dawn?
It's very possible. What are we missing? Because I only have this, perhaps I'm handing out the wrong one.
Let me see.
Should there be 3 or
Well, there's 3 strategies
under 2?
under goal A.
Yes.
So I'm-
So there's a strategy 3, I see.
Yeah, and and 2 is not the same. Let me just look here on other ones to see if that's just an anomaly or if we. Okay, eat a cookie, just a minute. So this is the one you
Yeah.
sent. One day, right, yeah. Improve traffic safety. That's good. Engagement, okay. Oh, thank you. Okay, that's good. See. Retain. Continue policy, that's good. Maintain. Educate. Invest in technology.
We're all thinking, I was going to expound on what Jim said. Because I know you have a section on environment, but you can't really disassociate your yard, your environment, the street you live on from high quality housing, because what I hear from talking to people is they like trees and things, and more people are planting, native plants and,
Yeah, and we have, well, there's a goal specifically on that toward the end here. I'm just making sure that we have the right stuff and then we'll resume here. Just a second. Everything else is looking good. I'm not sure what happened to our housing, strategy, engage, support,
One good.
harmony.
That part.
Yes. Okay, so this is, everything else looks good. So I think what we're gonna do is just, rather than like go back and forth with the screen and the handout, I want you to use the handout that Dawn just gave you.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're gonna go with, you're gonna be using the goals that have the 2 strategies for housing on the first page. And then we're all on the same thing and we're in good shape. Yes, we're on the same page. Thank you, Jim. Yeah,
The one that I'm handing out is the most recent one.
okay, when everybody gets that. So this actually,
No, the one that I'm handing out right now, the right, I'm not sure if it's different.
There's, could be changes further down, so use the new handout, even though it means cutting more trees.
It was my major consideration.
Okay, I think we're in good shape. So everybody's got the two strategies on their first page for housing. And this magically responded to Jim's concern about having something about supporting sustainable housing improvement and construction policies, having a strategy that speaks specifically to that. So before we go on to the next goal, any other thoughts on these strategies for housing? Hello, Robel. Thanks for coming. We're really just getting started, so this is the important part. Okay. Goal B. Okay. I am going to use the screen just to show you the, actually use your handout to look at the survey results. So look at goal B and look at your survey results. So let's take a look at that first. So goal B is about providing a connected, safe, and equitable transportation network for all modes, ages, and abilities. So this was another area that we heard a lot from the public on, just the desire for more walking and biking, particularly walking, I would say. So in the vision and issues engagement results, the most important transportation issue was increasing opportunities to walk and bike, preceded only by the maintenance of existing infrastructure like streets and sidewalks. So people felt maintenance of existing infrastructure like streets and sidewalks was most important. Increasing opportunities to walk and bike was right behind it. In terms of walking and biking priorities, we heard that it's important to connect residential areas to parks and trails, as well as making neighborhood streets safer for walking and biking. So in the strategy survey, we asked about priorities for roadway maintenance and priorities for sidewalks. And basically, we wanted to understand if people thought it was more important to focus on Olive, on their neighborhood streets, not including private streets. We were noted. Or to focus on the collector roads. And for roadway maintenance, the priority was on collector roads. That was considered more important, a little bit more important than Olive, and significantly more important than those neighborhood roads. And then the priority for walking and biking was to improve and expand the existing condition and the network of sidewalks. Yeah, I didn't think you'd be able to read that, but let's do it because you might be able to read it. Oh, there. Yeah. So that's what we heard. So let's look at the strategies. So look in your handout on goal B, provide a connected, safe, and equitable transportation network for all modes, ages, and abilities. Strategy 1 is improving traffic safety and accessibility for motorized and non-motorized traffic. Continuing implementation. Strategy 2, continuing implementation of the Olive Boulevard Conceptual Master Plan, and strategy 3, engaging in regional discussions to improve local connectivity to regional transportation options and policies. And then you've got some examples there about potential actions or ideas for implementation under strategy 1. Thoughts on that or comments on that?
Accessibility.
Please speak into the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Define accessibility? The first one, develop a transportation plan that focuses on accessibility.
So it can be used by motorized, and so it can be used, it's accessible for pedestrians and bikes, and it's accessible, it can be used by, accommodates motorized and non-motorized traffic.
Yeah, so I'm confused because it seems like I don't know what the focus is. It's on everything. Develop a transportation plan that focuses on accessibility for motorized and non-motorized. So what else is there? I mean, so where's the focus? I guess I am confused about what the focus is.
Yeah, I think this is getting at maybe the balance between the two. So maybe there's a better wording we could think about to try to get at that. Or was there a comment from over here? No.
Because I don't know that we need more accessibility for cars. I mean, all the roads are pretty accessible to them.
True.
It's like improving traffic flow. I mean, especially with the development that occurs. So you do need to continue to look at that and balance.
Well, and that's a good point, but on the one hand, I don't want to improve traffic flow because I live off Old Bonham, and Old Bonham is a cut through for all these cars. And so, and we've done things in the past to make it easier to cut through, like Old Bonham. It used didn't have that big wide sweeping turn. It used to be a stop sign. It was a 90-degree turn. So I'm not interested in making it easier for people to use Old Bonham as a cut through and improving traffic flow on Old Bonham.
I think that in this context, it would refer to making it more desirable for people to go. Why am I messing it up?
Towards you, down.
Okay, I forgot. Okay, I think in this context, is it not saying that it would then work to create infrastructure to reroute away from that one? From where? Okay, because it also has this asterisk resilient strategy, and I see that throughout, but I don't see
Yeah.
any other asterisk one. Is it coded for something? What's it coded for?
You know what that means? That is,
tell me.
this is does anyone remember from previous meetings? Dawn.
I remember us talking about it, but
No, it just, you know what? It just means that when you all did the strategy exercise and remember it was your second meeting and you played the game about the strategies, and if that strategy was applied to numerous scenarios, then it was identified as a resilient strategy because it worked in numerous contexts. Yes. So I'm sorry, I should have offered that when we were starting this thing, but that's how it came to be a resilient
Okay,
strategy.
I think it can help clear up that first point. Strike the word for and change it to between. That speaks to your point of
balancing.
balance
Yeah.
between the two.
I like that.
Yeah. Does that help, Stephanie? Like, we're trying to balance the use of the transportation throughout the community. We know it's that people are going to drive, but we want to balance those needs with.
And I know like Rob said, now with all the new stuff on Olive. But on the other hand, I don't want to divert it off of Olive. I don't want people driving down Price and dealing with.
And I think that underneath this strategy, there are a lot of conversations that need to be had about the specifics of what you do in certain circumstances. We're not necessarily solving all the problems. We're just leaving a placeholder for the conversations to happen.
And a question, does this relate? I don't know, does accessibility also relate to ADA? Or
It's a factor.
I don't see ADA in this. And I see more of the other stuff. So just a question.
Yeah, ADA would definitely fall under that, Jim. Yeah. Okay, Carlos, were you going to add something?
No, I was just kind of thinking in terms of strategy one, the overall priority is to improve traffic safety and access for both motorized and non-motorized traffic. In terms of the details of how that's done and whether the committee as a whole should say we don't want traffic on this street or this street, that comes in the next phase. That I think a transportation plan or some component will be necessary, or we'll be going through this kind of prioritize that in there. through the advisory committee or through this plan, they can provide some recommendations and things to be considered in that plan as we get further into the details in there. So I just wanted to note that.
So I have a comment on that. So it looks like the survey results, the most important issue was increasing opportunities to walk and bike. Doesn't say anything about traffic safety. I mean, I'm not saying, I don't want accidents, but it seems like we want to be able to, and so safety with regard to walking and biking, not safety in regard to how do you keep people from speeding on Olive or running red lights?
Mhm.
And I think that's a good point. I mean, because when I think traffic safety, pedestrian safety, it's kind of pedestrian traffic, I guess, is what I think of. And you can remove just the term traffic. The core here is to improve the safety and accessibility.
Mhm.
And whether it's motorized or non-motorized, you are correct. There are two distinct things and which gets prioritized over the other. I'm not sure, but we need to do a better job of how we do it.
Is users better than traffic there?
And that's something we are trying to quantify through our data and research about like, where do we have our crosswalks? What are the widths of the pavement for sidewalks, et cetera?
Yeah.
Because that all leads into ADA requirements and whether it's, you know, the width or the grade. Oh, thank you. So there are various ways that we try to quantify it, but accessibility, I think Carlos is right, is that traffic may be drawing the ire here and away from what the goal is trying to address, which is accessibility in general. So ease of access.
Yeah, because what I've seen in even since COVID and it's continued, more and more people are biking along Obama. You know, lots of people are biking. So
I like those changes. So improve safety and accessibility for motorized and non-motorized. Between, okay, yeah, so I thought between motorized and non-motorized.
I like Don's use of the word ease of access as opposed to accessibility, because I think when I think about accessibility,
You go straight to
I'm
ADA.
thinking about ADA.
Uh-huh.
And that it's confusing as opposed to clarifying in this context.
So improve safety and ease of use between motorized and non-motorized.
Ease of access, I think was a
Ease of,
blanket.
okay.
We wordsmith these things
Yeah.
constantly, so.
Yeah, I'm gonna write the whole thing, so I make sure I've got safety and ease of access, like that. Okay, good.
Microphone.
question, strategy 2, continue the implementation of the Olive Boulevard conceptual master plan.
Mhm.
So could you summarize what that client master plan is that we're going to continue?
Yep.
Sure, that plan focused on better managing traffic on the corridor by reducing the number of curb cuts, getting the corridor to kind of look like a boulevard and establishing new landscape requirements and streetscape requirements for the corridor. That included the incorporation of more, natural plant types as opposed to what was being used. It also considered the distinction of the area on the south side of Olive Boulevard is completely different than the north side of Olive Boulevard because of utilities in there. So you'll notice like the trees that are mostly on the south side are chopped up a lot. Where on the north side, they're not as much, and that is because of the overhead power lines. All the, there's a lot of underground wiring that runs through that segment. So it took all these things into account in there. So it had several components: aesthetics, traffic safety and management, and some other policies that are in there that I think.
And isn't there something that people that you're trying to encourage people to be able to walk along there?
Correct. I mean, I looked at pedestrian, it looked
Okay.
both at motorized and non-motorized
Okay,
improvements. And then, yeah, one of the key focuses was to improve being able to cross olive at certain points.
okay.
And so
So there, yeah, so there's a lot there. Other questions or comments on what's there? Okay. All right, let's go on to goal C. So the next couple, we don't have specific public input on. So goal C is ensuring reliable, efficient, and sustainable infrastructure. So a couple strategies here: maintain, monitor, improve infrastructure importance, and continue to further policies and best practices to address stormwater mitigation and management. So take a look at the specific kinds of implementation ideas there, make sure those are okay.
that would be looking at both MSD or even engaging with a subdivision. If there are issues or problems and how to resolve some. And they're more in a communal way as opposed to individually. And that includes the financing.
I got a question. What do we mean when we say balance resources and funding with the city's infrastructure goals? I mean, don't we always have to do that?
You're using your available resources to make the most of what you've got. I mean, that's what I,
So why are we saying? I guess is really the
To
question.
cover ourselves, I think. You know, I mean, basically, we'd love to.
That's part
cover-
of budgeting.
Right, but it's also, I mean, some people might look at this and say, well, we want you to redo the entire sewer system throughout all of that. Well, it's cost prohibitive to do that, so it's trying to, I think, emphasize that we got to balance our expenditures versus with the budgets we have, and that should be a goal for fiscal responsibility.
I'm not sure it's a strategy.
I think it's a sustainable strategy,
Oh.
quite frankly, from an economic
From
standpoint,
an economic
doing it,
sustainability, yeah.
trying to target your worst case scenarios, trying to put the funding into those areas, and then gradually work on
I guess,
everything else.
I guess,
Right.
I guess that's what you always do, but, okay.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I will say it's
in-
all as the city manager who has had to work with elected officials who make budgeting decisions. Sometimes stating the obvious is helpful to remind them about balancing of resources. So if you'd like me to help me out, please leave the sentence in there.
So I
Okay,
just,
for you.
just a caveat to think further ahead. I know U City has some kind of language that their green commission, they have actually like a green commission, environmental commission. And they have some kind of policy that if whatever they want to do, the payback is less than 7.5 years, they have like automatic approval to do it. So I'm just.
Yeah, so
throwing
that's a
that out.
policy that could
Yeah, well, that
be
would be-
developed
yeah,
with
it's not a
this
strategy,
responding
that's
to this,
something
right?
that-
And so just for the it's okay if so on the you don't have like I don't want you to disagree with any of these bullets. They're offered as ideas to help illustrate the strategies that we're trying to make sure we're comfortable with. So I want to I see the point on the, we're kind of stating the obvious here. I think this sentence could actually end up in sort of a narrative part of the plan where we're just talking about best practices. It doesn't mean that it's an action. So when you're looking at like I think do a light edit on the bullets. They're there to tell you what we mean by the strategies, because we know that when you look at strategies, sometimes it's like, well, what does that mean? Okay, the bullets are there to kind of tell you what the plan will be considering, but they're not each individual action item. So I don't know if that helps. It makes it a little easier. We don't have to all these bullets aren't going to exactly end up in the plan like this. These are their ideas that we want to make sure the plan incorporates somewhere, but the strategies are going to end up literally these words in the plan. Bullets are there to help you understand the strategies tonight.
I wonder if just expanding on this point and just adding in the idea of investment quality and to be able to look at infrastructure projects as investment quality versus cost.
Because they could be more expensive, but they are more long lasting. And
Right.
so,
Exactly.
and that's, yeah.
We could have like something along that, like, I don't know if you guys know what ESGs are.
What's an ESG?
Hmm?
What's an ESG?
Oh, I forgot the full acronyms, like economic, sustainable, yes, that environmental sustainable governance, social governance, which is something like a lot of big companies are doing. And it's like keeping them accountable for what they do when it comes to carbon emissions and whatnot like that.
Yeah, which can be a factor in how what you're investing in infrastructure and where you're putting your priorities there too. Yeah. Okay. And I think the idea about ensuring resiliency of infrastructure from neglect and climate change is also an aspect of that. Thinking about environmental and sustainable governance too.
Can I ask a silly question?
Sure.
On strategy number 2, it says develop a stormwater master plan. Can you give me like any ideas of what would be included in that?
The
Because I feel
stormwater
like
master plan, yeah. So a stormwater master plan would look at, so an engineering firm comes in, looks at all of the stormwater needs and all of it, and then works with the community to develop a process for prioritizing what those are. And then it's a master plan is going to multi-year plan to fund the stormwater projects that are deemed the most highest need and figures out best ways to fund them.
so at this time, there's no assessment currently in Olivet of the stormwater situation. Or
Probably not.
I can
Yeah.
answer that. I
Okay.
think
okay,
MSD requires it.
Is there one?
MSD requires approval for any new development or
What I'm
any-
saying, Carlos, is like, do we have a scope of what that is in Olivet yet, or no? Because I feel like that would cover. It's like
Covers the
so
other-
overlapping for all of these things.
Mhm.
Correct. We have some regulations in place and some standards that we try to hold to. What this would be would help us prioritize in there. And that happens a lot with infill development where it's difficult to, when we're looking at a individual home being redeveloped, and we know that there's an area that has stormwater problems, we can't solve it with just that individual home in there. It needs to be taken a step back and looked at the broader picture in there. And stormwater master plans usually will break out the community into separate zones, find out what those areas are, give us some, there's a variety of different types and such, and that might require some further explaining of what is that stormwater master plan and what are the components of that.
I also just wonder if we're gonna start looking at the stormwater closely, like what keeps us from looking at like, the measuring, what the ecosystem is like in terms of like living creatures
Well,
and
so-
what kinds of plants are there and what kinds of plants are being, producing things for those creatures and for the people and for cover, but maybe I'm just getting distracted.
Yeah, so let me.
We'll come
maybe
back to
I
that
can-
when we get to the goal line.
Maybe I can answer that. So flooding has become a huge issue in the last few years with climate change and the weird rain and all these patterns and so there's a lot of committees now, there's a lot of groups that are addressing floodwaters and stormwater is a huge part of it. And like U City actually has a stormwater commission that's what they concentrate on. And so we're talking about people's houses getting flooded. That's why it's,
And there's not as much of that. U City does have that issue.
yes,
It's not as much in Olivet,
it's
like
a
with that.
little, but yeah.
Yeah, and the stormwater, so I think it's good to have a placeholder in your plan for this, I think. The landscape on stormwater and what's funded is potentially gonna change. MSD there'll be something on the ballot in April. If it's approved, then MSD has a little, Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District has a little bit more money to spend on stormwater projects that would trickle down to municipalities. And that changes what cities can do. So I think it's good to have a placeholder here for, let's think about how we're doing that. And the stormwater master plan would be a way to look at it comprehensively. But I think there is overlap there, the second bullet there where it's talking about, trying to figure out what is an individual responsibility and what's collective as part of that. That is part of that stormwater master plan. So there's overlap in that. It's just a reminder to like, make sure that that's part of the thinking. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna do the next couple goals and I want to hear from this side of my table, if you're up for it. Or you can just say, no, move on, because that's our perspective, is that this is fine and we need to move on. So we'll look to you first on this next one. Okay. So this is goal D, ensuring high quality city services and facilities, bless you, for all residents and businesses. First strategy, maintain exemplary public facilities and demonstrate best practices across city services. Second, educate and market existing services and facilities to residents and businesses. And third, invest in technology to enhance delivery of city services to residents and businesses. So these are broad categories again, but that's by design. I think strategy 1 speaks to Olivet has awesome facilities. We're sitting in one. You built a community center. I think that's something that sets your community apart. So maintaining exemplary public facilities and really continuing to demonstrate best practices across city services. It's good to have a placeholder for those things here. The educating and marketing existing services and facilities. I think in a lot of different conversations, especially with city staff, we're trying to get the word out to people about what is available here. The new community center is built, so we need people to become members of that facility and to come to events at that facility. And so continuing to, cities, like everything else, you sort of have to let people know you're there, even though we're all very clued into what's going on here, but the general population of Olivet might not be. So I'm going to ask any comments over here. Stephanie has a question, but sounding okay? Yeah, good. Sounds pretty straightforward. And then investing in technology, we know that things change all the time and there are opportunities to improve city government through technology. So this is a good placeholder again for the budget conversations about what do we need to do to make things improve services. This is a placeholder for having technology be part of that. Yes, Ms. Todd.
So does facilities include parks? Because when I think of facilities, I think of buildings and things like that, but people.
We'll get to parks. We will get to parks.
So
separate goal.
So parks aren't considered a city service?
I think it's called out different in another section.
Okay.
And
all right.
it's under the healthy community. When we talk
Okay.
about health of the community,
All right.
we'll speak to recreation programs and parks.
Okay.
So this is more, I think about more like this building, the sort of the it is more building focused. Yeah. Okay.
Beth,
Yeah.
I just have one thing to say, and we've been on, the city staff and the city council about the technology, and our facilities.
Mhm.
And we continue to look for ways to improve the services for the police, fire, the park department, and also, the public works. And, so, yeah, we look at that now, but that we need to continue to look at, because if we stop, it's just gonna pass us by.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks.
We're doing that.
Yeah, and it's a big investment in some cases. And so having something in here that just, you know, is a green light to like, yes, we should be considering these things. Yeah. Okay. Goal E is proactively lead economic development and redevelopment to create a diverse and resilient economy. So there are two broad strategies here: increase the city's role in business retention and attraction, and position Olivet for economic growth. Couple notes on what we've heard from the community on this goal. I can't stop from going backwards. Just a reminder, we all know this, but like part of what you think about as the economy in Olivet is like the education, is education. Because it leads to trained workers and jobs. So you've got a fantastic, and really it's important for your well-being overall that your schools are so good and that people come here for your schools. So that's top of mind here. Weakness that people have seen shared with us, a desire for more entertainment, retail, and restaurants. And some restaurants. Yeah. So we do hear that quite a bit. And then I wanted to show you the strategy survey results here. Hold on, I'm gonna pull mine up so I'm not turned around. So this was I think reinforces probably what you would assume. People like recent commercial development, things like Firestone, Oliver, and Plant Haven. We showed them pictures of those in the survey, and mostly supportive of recent development. Less satisfied with the buffering between residential and commercial. You all have raised issues related to that. The strategy direction for managing commercial development, when we asked, similar to what we asked about housing, you know, should it be more regulated or should it just stay the same, or should you prevent inflow from happening in commercial? We said kind of offered three choices. Half of respondents preferred the city consider additional regulations to manage factors like height and density while continuing to encourage new development. And 30% said to continue the current approach. So it was very much like, you know, the community is like, you know, maybe kind of adjust regulate the sort of big feeling things. I'm being very non-plannery and, you know, like non-technical, you know, but the density, the size, maybe not big apartment buildings. But I think, I mean, the general direction that we heard pretty convincingly is keep going. Maybe kind of think about scale, think about the buffering, but by and large, like based on survey results, we would say community supports the direction that you're going and keep going in that direction in terms of your commercial development. We asked if they would be up for having, you know, we've talked about some off of Olive commercial, you know, what opportunities might there be for that? So we asked a question about, you know, would you be up for having that nice little coffee shop or bakery, like, you know, in your neighborhood? And no, they didn't so much. It was like kind of down the middle. It was down the middle. Some said yes, some said no, but there's no, you know, clear direction there. People are divided. But there was a lot of support for the idea that Carlos and Dawn had raised about using the potentially using parks or areas that are designated as thank you. I knew there was a term I was missing, zone for public activity for things like food trucks and kiosks and other things. So there was a lot of interest in that, just maybe don't put it in my neighborhood per se. So that's some of the feedback that we got that is kind of backdrop for this. And then the strategies of increasing the city's role in business retention and attraction and positioning all of it for economic growth. So you can take a look on your handout just to get a flavor for the types of actions and some of the considerations for those strategies to give them a little bit of texture. Ravel, any thoughts from you on this? You're a business, yes. All right, let's hear it.
I remember last meeting, we talked about that land on Dealman. I know you said it's private owned land, but is there any way like the city can get it or like all of it in general? Cause I feel like that's very prime for land use to develop along with Centennial Greenway, as well as just small businesses or attraction for families, etc.
Yeah, so I think my understanding of that property is that, yeah, it would have to be acquired. So it would have to be paid for. So the city would have to purchase it. Yeah, sorry, I'm like making that hard. Yeah, so city would have to purchase it. So not impossible, but city would have to purchase and then potentially remediate depending on what kind of use was going to take place there because of some past contamination. So not necessarily the degree to which that would be necessary would depend on how it was going to be used. So, but I think that would, yeah, so I think that nothing here precludes that from happening. Yeah, what are you gonna say?
I was gonna say, cause I know like, yesterday's meeting with, like in the morning with the coffee and the mayor, they were talking about the Greenway actually during, like along Indian Meadows, along that law is gonna happen during the winter, so if construction is going on then maybe it could be like the same time phase, but I know that's coming up, so it was just a thought.
Yeah, so I think maybe when we hold that thought, because I think we have more as we get into some of the goals related to health and well-being, and where that probably would be an action that we could work in, like an idea for action that we could think about adding.
Can we clarify what area we're talking about?
Oh, yes,
I'm
yes.
sorry.
I think Carlos, why don't you describe it?
Just north of the HDIS building, right before you get to the Napoleon and Rothwell Heights, there's that vacant parcel that is on the east side.
Okay,
And there it's been vacant for quite some time. So the creek is up on the northern end, and then Rothwell Heights is just the block up
okay.
in there. And the Great Rivers Greenway is negotiating with the property owner to extend that trail through that property along the creek, and then connect to the railroad track, and then that'll get you to the CVS and Chevy's entrance in there. So that is in motion in there, but because it's dealing with railroads, it won't happen at the same time as the Indian Meadows component of it. So
Yeah.
We haven't said anything specific about our business parks. I'm wondering if that doesn't warrant something.
Something specific.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've-
So,
we've-
I mean,
I really
actually,
think
We've
that's
paid
a
a lot of
great
attention
point.
to them.
Oh.
You know,
Yeah.
past few years, and they're in a good place now.
yeah, let's think
But
about
we
how
wanna
we
keep them.
can work, because we haven't mentioned Olive Boulevard specifically, other than thinking about the streetscape, and like, we haven't called it out as like an economic, center either. So I'm just gonna make a note of that, because I think that we do in the plan want to, maybe what we end up doing is having, like, as part of this section, we've got a map that has areas that are critical for the economy. And so we highlight the industrial area as one of those, and, Olive Boulevard, of course, and then maybe we can work in the narrative on like where not commercial could go off of Olive. So I think we need to have we do need to have the, maybe it's not a strategy, but we're definitely calling out that area as important for,
Yeah, I think it
yeah.
meshes with your first bullet point under strategy 2. You need to have a diverse revenue base.
Mhm.
And so I think all those ideas kind of incorporated as context for that first bullet point.
Mhm.
So I have a question. So I think Carol brings up a good point where we keep talking about new, but what about when somebody wants to go in? Is that what you mean, like to Price Crossing or then Olive Crossing? Should there be some kind of strategy about businesses that we would like to go in there? And
That's a different issue altogether.
Yeah.
okay.
I'm talking about our business parks, our industrial areas.
Oh, okay.
Oh, but you're talking about.
Yeah,
strategy.
I was thinking like
You're talking about specific types of retailers that we're interested in. That's a Economic Development Commission issue.
okay.
That's the way I would look at it.
But
guess
it,
it would-
it does form part of the policy, the land use policy in there. So when you look at strategy 2, at that last bullet point, I think that the intent is to address what you're asking, but at a-
Yeah, like people said they wanted more restaurants. So when an opening comes up,
Could be wrong, but I don't think we get to dictate to Price Crossing what they put in there. We can limit certain things around the design, the specifics and what it looks like, but if they want to rent out to a hair salon versus a restaurant, as long as it's zoned that way, we don't get to influence, we don't get to force
You're
that.
you're basically talking about retail versus commercial versus warehouse versus industrial. You've got just general areas and you're not gonna be able to go ahead and say, I want this type of restaurant in here, because what you're doing is you're putting an undue burden on
Agreed.
the landlord and
Yep.
the owner of that property.
I agree. But then how are we, back to the original thing, how do we tell a builder, oh no, you can't tear down that house and put up a giant house?
That's a
Different,
Zoning issue.
different issue.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Because I mean, just think about where the pickleball is going in, right? You could have put in an old country buffet, but I mean, we don't get to decide that. I mean, it's
Yeah, I was just trying to.
not that I.
I was just trying to figure out-
That's a throwback.
Listen, it's also
Yeah,
called
That's why I
spot
think
zoning.
economic development.
And that spot zoning is very much frowned upon.
But I do think there is a difference. And one of the things that we don't do right now is we're not under the current comprehensive plan and our structure is to be proactive. We're trying to get there. And that is what, again, that last bullet point is to put us in a position that if there is a desire of the community to look for a specific type of cuisine to locate somewhere, to have Don or I out there advocating, or the Economic Development Commission.
Mhm.
This is straight out of the 5-year plan of the Economic Development Commission, to be proactive.
Mhm.
And again, it's not to tell the developer or the landlord what they should have, but to go and promote all of that.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, if I can just throw it out there that you can make thank you. I mean, you can make appeals to different types of businesses, you know, if you want to chase down the tech sector
Mhm.
and you can, fly to LA or
Mhm.
wherever and try to court businesses. It's a very big industry. But it's not something that cities, municipalities can always do. Because for obvious reasons, monetary reasons, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to attract, and that is the attraction part of it. But retaining and expanding businesses is really 80 or supposedly 80% of your year-over-year business. So I don't think we want to lose any bit of it. And I know we're trying to be kind of all inclusive in the wording here. So maybe we're getting a little tied up in the.
Can I just add
Yeah,
one thing?
please.
On with the existing business parks, where we started this conversation. Is there anything that we can put in here to support the redevelopment of existing parcels within the city limits? I'm just thinking of some of the things that are way in the back off of Price, if, like if, say, for some of those businesses were to leave, like what happened with the pickleball space, how do we support the existing redevelopment of, parcels that we have within the city?
Want the buildings to fall down.
Actually, some of that's already being done at EDC.
Okay,
we work with landlords, developers. I know that, I've been on the commission for a long time. We've looked at a lot of plans. And we usually look at them probably first, even before PCDC does, because a lot of people come with their ideas about this, that, or the other, and they want some tax breaks and that sort of thing. And you'd be surprised, like, I don't really talk about them, but we've turned down quite a few things over the years because they just don't fit with basically what we're looking at now, the economic plan or the master plan of the city.
I do have another question as well. One of the issues that we're beginning to hit on in our industrial areas is we have uses who are interested in non-industrial uses that are coming into our industrial parks. And I've seen other cities permit a lot of that because their business industrial parks were way underutilized and vacant and falling down or what have you. And they get, school board offices. Don't take that personally. But
I tried.
you get a lot, they get a lot of, Brentwood is a good example, where their industrial parks are no longer really industrial parks, but they're business parks. They have office users and.
Oh, you haven't been
other-
to Park City, Utah? You have a point though. Never mind.
No, Breton, City
yeah.
of Breton, yeah, but I don't know that we want our industrial areas to go that route, but we're getting use requests for various things that
Would push it.
aren't typical industrial type users. And, once you start chipping at the edge of that, and I'm happy with what we've approved for our park so far, but I could see us going too far with that, and I don't know how to find that balance.
Actually, when it comes to different uses, that sort of thing in industrial parks, it's whatever the market will bear. And we can go ahead and promote ourselves as, oh, we have an industrial park, but if we don't get any interest in it, we have big vacant buildings. So having some flexibility with regards to zoning, and I'm talking about zoning downward, because industrial is probably the most, what's the word I'm looking for? The most, specific, less broad, use of land, and it's most restrictive, I would say. To downgrade into warehouse or into commercial office, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, because it allows property owners to go ahead and utilize, rent out what they can, based on market things. And I would say this, to your point, if the infrastructure of the industrial space, the actual buildings is not changed that much, I think that it would definitely be allowable.
Carlos,
That's the edge that I'd love to see us get some guidance. Because I mean, we've got, so if we have a vacant building and somebody like the pickleball club wants to come in, okay? Well, it's a good use. And I'm happy to see them come to all of that. But it's not industrial use as we typically think of industrial. I mean, one of them is wonderful. I don't know that I want a whole industrial park of them. So how do we find that balance?
So I'm hearing different things, because I'm hearing you say maybe the comprehensive plan needs to offer some guidance to define our industrial parks as industrial parks. And I'm hearing the EDC position more like, well, we want to fill them. And so let's not overly define what they should be, because we want flexibility to take advantage of market. So I don't know if this is a comprehensive plan issue that you want to settle
Yeah.
on or not.
And I guess I'd be curious why, looking at all the different strategies we have, economic development, more, diverse, bringing more jobs, bringing more businesses. I think giving the EDC the opportunity to do kind of, my thought is leave it out, let the EDC figure it out. And I tend to agree, more is better. I'd love more pickleball, more like
So
whatever
I'll
wants
tell
to get
you
it.
why. Business parks bring in a significant amount of revenue for our community. It
Okay.
helps keep our revenue streams balanced.
I see that as a positive. I'm
So
agreeing.
that's positive. But if we diminish that base, we diminish one of the legs to help support our whole community.
Right.
And I don't,
Wait, I'm saying allow business parks, not just industrial.
so
And you just said it helps, so that's where I'm
So-
confused.
we have
She said
industrial
yes.
parks, okay?
Agreed.
Brentwood has business parks. Okay, they used to have industrial parks. They don't have them. They let them convert to business parks,
Okay.
okay? So they lost one of their legs. Okay, they don't have that leg anymore. But we still do. I think it's an important part of our overall picture and the overall health and the part of the diversity that makes our revenues unique. And I think we need to hang on to that. But at the same time, we have to think about, well, this building's vacant. We want to fill it up. How do we, we've got so-and-so that can fill it up.
Mhm.
And how do we find that balance? I don't know. I'm looking
Yeah.
for guidance. but
Yeah.
I don't,
think
I don't want to say, well, I don't want to deal with absolutes and say, well, you just
Yeah.
can't put.
Okay,
Have
case
a
in
pickleball.
point, case in point, is the building that is going to be used for the pickleball facility, half of it's pickleball and half of it, I believe, is latch moving.
Latch, yeah.
It was like earlier this year, was it this year or last year? That a marijuana growing facility wanted to use that. Well, that would be industrial.
Right.
And now we're using it as recreational. I think that the people who are, nearby are quite happy with the change in
Right.
use.
No question. Right, so the question to me is, one is fine. But we don't want a whole industrial park of pickleball. So
Mhm.
how do we?
But,
Yeah, so-
but I think our policies are set in place and they can be improved and we can look at that second bullet point under strategy 2. The EDCs this is coming from their 5-year economic development plan about, highest and best use. And that's just a very general term. When I started, and it's not because of me, but we had over 14 manufacturing licenses that were issued. This year, 3. And one of them, which has been here forever, Carol, is exempt by the state and pays no hardly any tax on their business license and has their property tax discounted in there.
Mhm.
Because that's what manufacturers generally get. I mean, they're there only for the purposes that it's being subsidized in there. What we've seen are industrial parks, again, I'm down to maybe 3 manufacturers. It's changed. They're more commerce parks is the way I look at them in there. Office parks, Olivet Executive, there is a distinction. The Dielman Bauer Warson has very little industrial activity. And primarily is because most of those buildings are antiquated and couldn't handle much of the industrial activity that you could find at a Wentzville or some way out west community in there. And that's the reality of it. What we've seen in, let's say, like 1220 North Price, I mean, the pickleball court, we could have said no and they'd have to go somewhere, but we have them as a special permit identification. And we found that was a reasonable use for that site. We had new investors for that building or new owners for that building. They got their tenant there, then they attracted Latch. And then they have another space that's on the market, and we're starting to see, they redid the parking lot, they repainted the building. And we're working with them to try to do some improvements to the fence. and hopefully they'll push the guy next door behind Annie to start investing in his building, which is used as a warehouse and probably has 4 people and is over 200,000 square feet. Yeah. There's no, if we restrict them to industrial only, we're gonna see that parcel just sit there.
Yeah,
Right,
so I
that-
think the
that's-
question is like, how can we incorporate the idea of, maintaining this diverse revenue base? Cause I think that's
It's very core.
cause that's very core.
Mhm. And
maybe
that's why
we'll
that
make that
district,
explicit
the
in
district
plan.
is called a light industrial district, but outside of most uses that are identified, they're not manufacturing.
Mm-hmm,
If a steel plant came in,
mm-hmm,
we're not gonna let it in. I mean, period. It's not even permitted in the code. It's just a name that was given in there, and it was a light name, and that's how it's kind of transitioned.
mm-hmm.
Carlos, our industrial parks, what is the occupancy rate about now?
It does, it is pretty good. I would say that it's probably well over 90 to 95%, because when we get inquiries, we just don't have space. We can't find space for people.
Right, and I knew it was up there, but also that can change in a minute, so we need to make sure that we have something.
And that's the thing, the
Policies.
goal within that is that I believe our ordinance is flexible enough to keep those, maybe the paddle pickle wasn't, it gave us that flexibility to at least to consider it in there. And we didn't create that. I mean, Town and Country racquetball was in the industrial park, 20 years prior in there. And that was some forethought of whoever was in this position that, hey, consider recreational opportunities to the industrial area and there as a way to increase amenity.
And we also have a lot, or we used to, a lot of nonprofits in all of that. Is that still the case?
Unfortunately, we attract them in
Yeah.
there, and those are hard because that
Yeah.
becomes tax exempt in there, but that's.
But you have to, you can't discriminate against. them.
Correct, but I think Carol, the goal on point number 2 is again, this plan this plan isn't gonna end all plans. It's gonna lead to a multitude of other plans. And the next 5-year economic development plan or the city's business strategy plan is gonna have to take the devil's gonna be in the details, and that's gonna have to delve into that process. What is the highest and best use? Or do we want to try to maintain and hold steadfast that we want manufacturing activity for the purposes to diversify? Again, we're looking at principles that talk about inclusion, equity, and such, that we may want good blue collar type of jobs, for lack of a better word, available to our residents, or that we would host them as part of being a regional partner.
Yeah, the first, under strategy 2, the first 2 points really summarize it well. Maintain a diverse revenue base and pursue land use policies, which are the highest and best use. It allows us flexibility, yet there's an accountability to the city to make sure that what is bringing in and what is approved, it makes sense from a tax base issue.
Well, with what Carol said, we can't forget about our industrial area because they supply a lot of revenue.
The bullets aren't going to be included. So maybe we just elevate those 2 bullet items that you talked about and make them into a strategy, as well. And I think Beth had when she kind of summarized it a while back, I can't remember exactly what she said, but something about maintaining the balance of diversity of income or, of your industrial park, something to
Yeah, I
that
think
extent.
that's
might be
a-
good to
Yeah.
add.
I think that's a really good idea because we talk about the fact that we have a very diverse tax base and all that. You look at certain times of years gone past, Brentwood was very much heavily retail. And during the 2008 recession, they really took it in their teeth because they were really heavily that way. Another thing is that the residential tax base that has existed over the years has changed quite a bit because of the value of the homes that have been built over the
Mm.
last 20 years. That's really changed things too.
Mhm,
We don't want to forsake that either.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I
Um,
think having that is it, yeah.
Sorry. Looking to the future, and we could probably move along to the next goal, but two things. One, I feel like we really should implement some type of partnership or like just looking at everything on 39 North, because within the next couple of years, they're really gonna develop and boom, not only St. Louis, but like they're like the spot for the whole globe when it comes to ag tech.
Mhm.
Two, I know there's this thing called Arch Grants where they fund startups, and I feel like the word startup would really fit in that area. So just keeping that in mind as another thought. Okay.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. All right, so let's move on to healthy communities. So, goal F, ensuring Olivet is welcoming to everyone and supports diversity amongst our residents, businesses, and visitors. Strategy 1, promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion in all aspects of our community and embracing the diversity of Olivet in both public and private redevelopment. So taking a look at what is the types of considerations for strategy 1, strengthening neighborhood groups and their partnerships with the city, increasing opportunities for community engagement and participation in city events, enhancing community gateways and signage and wayfinding to promote a diverse and welcoming place to be with a cohesive community identity. So reflecting Olivet's diversity in the physical environment as well as the as in programming. So this whole idea, like we know that from the public engagement that we've done, that Olivet residents this is really something that's very important to them, to living in a diverse community, and wanting to maybe feel that diversity a little bit more in how the environment looks and things that are available to people in the city. So these strategies are responding to that interest. So what else would you, yes.
One thing I feel like it's like a basic term, but I feel like it's very fitting for a lot of things, especially when it comes to businesses. But now talking about like residents, when I look right there, it says all of it in the center of it all. What if we added of it all for all? Or just the aspect of thinking for all, for everyone, and that's like think of like DEI in a way. But yeah.
Wow. Can you change that sign?
You know, always be.
Of it all for all, yeah. Let's catch up here. Yeah. Okay, other thoughts on what needs to be here? Really like to hear from you on this one, because these are, I mean, again, the strategies are broad by design, because there's a lot that we want a lot of different types of action to go into this, but is there anything else we need to be calling out or thinking about?
I mean, the bullet points aren't going in the plan specifically, right?
Right.
So I guess the only thing I would add is these bullet points seem, when we talk about DE&I would think we're skirting the issue here of, strength and support and things like that. But I'm hoping that we can get a little bit more direct and actionable on, and I know it can't go in the plan, but in terms of actually, how do we take action to have, inclusivity? How do we take it to have equity? And that might be economic equity, that might be, financial, that might be developmental. To me, this one bleeds throughout the whole thing. And that everything we do, whether it's parks or housing or environment or things like that, it's not just strengthen partnerships, but it's actually like, I think we have to take, and it may not always be a popular opinion, but whether it's, I think Robin, talked about that, like it's asking developers to take a certain stand to say certain percentage of houses have to be for people, in this, this income bracket, or have to be this, or we need to talk about equity for whether it's ADA or other things. I don't know. I want to get a little more direct on the actionable. I know it's not gonna be in the plan, but I feel like these are a little vague otherwise, even beyond that. So I don't know, maybe I'm on the border.
No, I have some ideas about that. So I think one thing that would help, because it says strengthen neighborhood groups and partnerships and certain community engagement. So if the city would, if, and it gets kind of weird, but if the city would put things that groups are having that aren't official of the city and put it on the city website, put it on the events. And maybe, and have meeting rooms and things more open to community, to community groups. For instance, like Kate, who's here, she started Olivet Sustainability Advocates. If we want to rent a room, we have, it cost us, what was it, $75 for half a room? We don't have any money, we're just a group that, and like if there's other groups, like, I don't know, Olivet pickleball players or something, let them have if it's like, if you're an Olivet resident, let them use a room in the community center for free or something. Just an idea.
Yeah.
And I don't know what Dawn.
I have a question and maybe I just don't understand. In the second one, it said enhance the presence of public art throughout Olivet. How does that directly relate to the health of our community? Or maybe I'm not understanding something.
I think it's murals and things. It's more cultural and diversity. It's just, I don't know, it's microphone. Oh, okay. The way I see it, it's like the murals and things that cities are starting to put up. It's like cultural, it's diversity. It just,
I think that, and if you think about some of the public art that is here, like your mosaics that have been developed, which were community projects with their development, thinking about ways to bring the community together.
So the
Public art,
community is making this art. No.
that's one kind of art. It's not, that was one example of, but I think it's anything that enhances the visual environment is something that, it's not like a direct line to happiness, right? But it's part of what makes a community enjoyable to be in. So it ties into just health and well-being. What you're saying is it's a loose connection. You're not sure it fits.
If we're gonna say that, then like, why don't we, let's plant like pawpaw trees up and down Olive. That way everyone can get some free pawpaws when they're in season. And then we can make a really healthy environment. We're gonna grow peaches and pears and have female and male trees right next to each other so they can pollinate. And then we'll teach the kids how to cross pollinate them and then we'll monitor them and then cut off the buds. Okay, but
I'm coming back to you when we get to harmony. When we get to harmony with nature, you're gonna be really excited. We heard a lot from the community on sustainability. I mean, the most surprising result to me from the strategy survey was the overwhelming embrace of everything we offered in terms of a strategy or an item to consider for sustainability. So we'll get there in a few minutes. You're gonna get ready. Yeah.
Should a strategy for this also be that the city as a government and as an employer promotes the equity as well? I mean, not so much, we promote say diversity, equity, and inclusion in all aspects of our community. But should we say something?
Calling
that's-
out the city
that the
specifically.
city government should be involved with something. I think at this point that they are, but I think we need to explicitly say something in the document.
And maybe the place for that is even back in our city, the city services goal, where we're talking about best practices, but maybe there's a call out there for one of those best practices being being a leader in terms of hiring and maybe calling out some specific things the city can do to express that. So, yeah, I think that's.
No, I'm not sure this addressed when Annie, when you were talking about, because the chapter 3, and again, there are framework that's provided by the American Planning Association, healthy community, and when you look at the table that was first put out, there's 3 goals under healthy community. One is identity, being able to be yourself as identity or community identity. 2 is safety, And then you'll get to 3, which is more about health in there. So I'm not sure if that's what was throwing. What you're referencing is that, you know, how is healthy community, healthy involved with this as identity?
I think something that this reminded, like this particular item on enhancing public art throughout all of that, when we met with focus groups after that first survey, and we met with the Asian residents, Black residents, something we heard, particularly, I think it was from the Asian residents, but was like wanting to see different cultures expressed through the community, like through art. And like, so having just like coming into the city center and realizing that there are a lot of people from Southeast India here, you know, somehow, because there's whether it's some piece of art or there's a flag or there's a mural or there's a language that comes at you from a sign on the wall, you know, something that, so I think part of the, yeah, so I think part of this is that expression of culture through art, and that, yeah, that was part of what we'd heard.
The one thing I can say, when we built this building, and a lot of people know Lisa Roth from Old Bonham School, she was the art teacher, and she created this tree, the Olivet tree over there, with the students in Old Bonham School, with the community, with the employees, and it's fantastic. And now it's at Stacy Park. It's in the Olivet Diner. It's going to be in the new community center. And I've traveled a lot of places, and I was in Des Moines, Iowa in June, and I was shocked how much community art that they had in the downtown part of Des Moines, Iowa. And then yesterday, I was down at the Kranzberg, Ken and Nancy Kranzberg art place down by the Fox. And it's unbelievable. And they've got murals on the wall. I mean, it's all over the place. They've got rooftop gardens, but it's all art. And it draws people to that area.
Yeah, if it's tied into culture, I think it's beautiful, but if it's just like a WashU student's final project that we put on the side of the road for a week for everyone to look at, I don't think that's art, but thank you for everyone's share.
I know a handful of creators, like social media creators and whatnot. They're all in the art, and it's like, I would say it's coming up, at least in St. Louis. But when you talk about art, like earlier, it's also like music. It's also like poetry, for example, to like bring stuff together to the community. I feel like the new community center could be like a hub for all of this. And what you said with like Asians earlier, or African Americans or anything like that, that could be like a hub for everyone to like meet for events throughout the year.
And I agree with you. When I was down at the Kranzberg art, they had all that. I mean, they had poetry reading, they had music. I mean, I was blown away. And I said, I never heard of, I know the Kranzberg, but they took us on a tour down there. And it was unbelievable what's going on down in West St. Louis.
Midtown.
Pardon?
Midtown.
Same thing.
So I think maybe there's a better wording for this one where we, you know, if we use this, again, these aren't necessarily the specifics that are going into the plan, but if we are going to have anything about public art, I think it's more about reflects different art. Maybe the public is dropped because public art, you think of like the sculptures, right? Or murals necessarily. And I think to Rebelle's point, like it's like we want art in the community to reflect the many cultures and people that are here. And that's how it reinforces community identity. I think that's where it is connected to this particular goal.
I like that.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to goal G if that's okay. So this is a second goal under a healthy community. So we talked about goal F was about our community identity. This is about public safety, promote safe and healthy lifestyles for all generations. First strategy, promote and enhance public safety programs, facilities, and services. Second strategy, support resources and infrastructure of service delivery providers. And strategy 3, make improvements to the physical environment to increase safety through design. And I think all of these you could put the word continue to in front of. These things are ongoing. So the plan again is just having a placeholder for maintaining your public safety services.
I agree. One thing I know that the police department, the fire department, they have different programs, like in the police department, they have Citizens Police Academy, and some of the residents here in Olivet participate in this. And it's 5 other communities, and they see what it's like to be a police officer. They went out to where they have the SWAT team, and they aired thing. I did a presentation on the Major K Squad 2 weeks ago. And it just shows the community what our law enforcement does. On the other hand, the fire department puts on programs that have to do with fire safety, CPR, and so we're doing that. And I know that they're always reaching out for more technology to help serve the citizens of all of that, so.
Okay, yeah.
I have a quick question, and it seems like goal G and goal H are the exact same. Or am I missing that? Because it seems like a lot of stuff that I think I was gonna add or listed
That's
on
okay,
goal
and
H.
that's not how it should be, and that's my fault because we've edited. I didn't catch an edit from, one is about, we separated safe and healthy. So goal, so thank you for pointing that out. So goal G should be public safety. So strike the healthy, promote safe. It's not promote safe. What's our rewording? Folks, help me. It's just about, it's just. Of course, yes, yes. And we made some additional modifications tonight. So yes, we will. Yeah, I know, yeah, we will. So this one is about promoting safety for goal G. For goal H, it is,
Promote healthy lifestyles.
thank you.
Aren't they different? What's the same? I'm confused.
If you look at the title, look at the title of G and look at the title of H, and they're exactly the same.
The
My-
goals,
At the other paper.
No, my G said.
because you're looking at the,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
PowerPoint.
All right.
Yeah. We are,
Okay.
you know.
Okay,
Yeah, we got it.
all right, I'm looking at this, not that.
So if we're looking at goal H, which is focused on recreation and public health, so here's where we get into recreation facilities. And touch on that here. So goal H is going to be promote healthy lifestyles for all generations. And the strategies maintain and enhance recreation facilities, programming, and amenities for all ages. Strategy 2 is engaging the community partners and healthcare providers to encourage preventive healthcare for residents of all ages. Now we know that Olivet's not a healthcare provider, right? So this goal or this strategy speaks to just partnerships with others and connecting people to services, not actually providing them. Strategy 3, supporting sustainable environmental preservation and conservation strategies and practices. And some broad category or some broad items to consider there.
I actually earlier today for that second one,
Mhm.
I interviewed, I don't know if you guys know or are familiar with Oak Street Health or Oak Street Health, I believe it's called.
Mhm.
Okay,
And they have like 5 locations around St. Louis. They're gonna have 7 throughout St. Louis, but they're basically what this entails. So if we like partnered with them, they like go to residents that are in need of any type of like health situation, like the smallest of smallest health situations all the way to like the big ones. So they don't have to go straight to the big hospitals. So something like that, like if we have it within Olivet, like as a resource for them, it'd be
Mhm.
nice.
Mhm. Okay. Silence. Okay, moving on.
Love it.
We love it. We love it. We want another cookie and we're tired. Okay. So, chapter 4 is harmony with nature in the plan. And this next goal has to do with natural resources and resiliency. So again, the strategy survey, when the suggestions that we threw out were, almost universally supported, even if they cost money. You know, when we talked about attainable housing and affordable housing policies, the feedback that we got was, you know, it's okay, you know, if you're doing things that maybe change policy or a rent or bill of rights, but if it's going to cost money, then not so sure. That was not so true on the sustainability. It was just like, let's do it. Yeah. So, I mean, that's not, you know, to say that that's what is expected to happen tomorrow. But I think this, the message is that this is something the community cares about, and is interested in seeing the city be a leader on, and is up for having more regulation on development to help make sure that the built environment is reflecting that those values too. So goal I is strengthen our environmental sustainability to ensure resiliency to future impacts and provide prosperity for future generations. The first strategy is ensuring that future growth and development, including infill and redevelopment, are aligned with smart growth principles and consider infrastructure constraints. Strategy 2, be regionally involved in environmental sustainability. And that strategy 2, thinking about the, you know, sustainability is something that is, you know, it's systematic. You can't plan for it in Olivet by yourself. So this strategy is acknowledging that there are regional sustainability plans, and that's important to be involved in those planning efforts and have Olivet be a part of that, of those planning efforts.
Question.
Uh-huh.
On the strategy 1, you said ensure that future growth and development, including infill and redevelopment.
You
So
think we don't need the infill?
that would be. fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then a second question on that, what are smart growth principles? I'm not familiar with that term.
So smart growth is going to, and I think the point is we would need to define that in the plan, right? But smart growth is about growing in relationship to your infrastructure. Don't build where your infrastructure can't support you. Not as much of an issue here as it is, you know, in growing places. But also thinking about strategic density, you know, because if you are growing in a smart way, there's some density so that you don't have to rely on a car as much. And so that's another aspect of smart growth. What would you add, Carlos, anything?
I mean, it's a pretty broad aspect, and Google it and you'll have that. It talks about environmental sustainability, natural habitat, and their building efficiencies. And they're a acknowledged set of standards or principles that are used not just in the planning profession, but that are available out there. And I think, yes, when in the document, it would require some further
Just an
information
explanation
and
there.
references to that. So.
Yeah.
A lot of
Think,
smart growth principles relate to areas of communities that are not yet developed.
Right.
But we are developed and redeveloped. So we're kind of past a lot of it.
a question that comes to mind is, we're not an island here. Do we need to call out something about working with the communities around us? So for instance, U City does a lot of development that could affect some things here, or whatever Creve Coeur does with the Bayer property or something like that. How do we need to put something in the plan to say we're going to work with the other municipalities or
Our neighbors.
entities around us?
And
It's actually in strategy, on goal, I strategy 2, bullet point 1.
I was gonna ask, can we just reword that strategy 2 to just say involvement in environmental sustainability within the region?
Okay.
To your point, though, I think that what, that emphasizing our cooperation with our immediate neighbors is kind of a subset of that. I mean, regional sustainability is critical, but so is working with Creve Coeur and working with U City and working with Overland for that matter. So maybe we need to talk about our municipal neighbors as a part of that, as well as the larger region.
Microphone.
Isn't there something like the river to pair, something to try to keep river to pair from flooding?
yeah, that is like a watershed or organization.
That's
that,
what it is, yeah.
in there, and I believe it's funded through MSD. I'm not specifically sure, or yeah, I would think so. So that there are those type of. I'm not sure what the question is. It's not to limit it just to the municipalities.
I guess there are groups like that. I
I mean,
guess
there are-
is Olivet.
I'm not saying there aren't any. I'm
No,
just
you're saying we need to be involved in them.
Right.
Yeah.
We need to ensure that we participate or work with our neighbors.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really all I was trying to get.
I guess I'll just reinforce the ESG and for all
Mhm.
piece in this is again, because way I see Olivet, at least going into the future, like near future and far future, is as a community that's a example for other communities, because we are relatively small to communities around us. And we have like a lot of checkpoints like diversity, for example, school education, just a whole bunch of stuff. So definitely seeing us as like a goal other communities look at and try to copy.
Okay, good. Okay. And our final goal is for future land use and community design. Promoting strategic redevelopment and growth that is sustainable, responsible, and meets the needs of future generations. For strategy, enhancing the appearance of development and redevelopment in Olivet. And encouraging efficient and successful growth and redevelopment. These are, very broad, trying to leave that leeway for how your decision makers and appointed bodies and others can interpret and carry this forward. So pretty general language here. Is that okay?
And environmental, because it's actually hard to take apart the two, because if it's not environmentally sustainable, if you're gonna ruin the air or water, it's not really economic either. But just a question, because I've heard people use it both ways. Sustainability is economic.
Yeah,
and
I think we want to use it
environmental.
both ways.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I don't know if we need to spell that out, or I'm just a question. Because sometimes you say sustainability and people will depending on which side they fall on, they hear economic and other people hear environmental.
I think I think that's a good point. And I think as we, as we write the plan document, I think that that's something that we'll need to give a specific definition for. And like you saw through the goals and the strategies, sustainability comes in multiple times.
Yeah,
So it's not just in one thing. So
Right.
I think, and the same thing is true of, some of the ways that, the community's desire for diversity and how that's expressed comes in more than just one thing. So I think there are going to be some themes to the written document. And I would say that sustainability and diversity are kind of themes that weave through, the whole thing. So I think we'll have to write some text to,
Yeah.
put some context around that, I think for sure, because there are terms that need to be defined. So we are all talking about the same thing. Yeah. Okay, you made it. How's everybody doing? Yeah, what's, general comments? Yes.
Just kind of saving this, thank you, kind of saving this for last, under the first part, I think something's glaring missing.
Okay,
Something that is missing is glaring.
okay,
With regards to protecting private investment and individual investments in the investment they've made here in housing, in work, whatever. I think that well, people move here. We've seen a lot of economic growth in the last 20-25 years, and people are rely on that. And I think that the types of things that we choose to put in this plan should be bounced off it as an acid test to make sure that it does not deter anyone's individual investment in their private property.
okay, let me get some thoughts from others on that, because that's a very big idea.
Well, I guess maybe giving you an example. Say, for example, like some of the things we talked about tonight, you talk about size of home. Okay, and then all of a sudden an ordinance gets written and it says, okay, we're gonna, on this street, we've had enough big houses. We don't want any more. So you've got lot A and lot B. Lot A's been redeveloped. It's a, 4,000 square foot house. Lot B is still a 1950s 3-bedroom ranch slab. What you're doing is you're basically limiting lot B to say that, oh, I can only build a 2,500 square foot house. Kind of what that does is it takes away the equity that that person has in their house. But possibly, maybe just forcing them to redevelop their house. And not being able to have the same benefit that lot A had in selling to a developer and redeveloping.
So
I mean,
that's what zoning is. And your idea is what Houston promoted, and that's why they have no zoning in a mess. By definition, zoning does what you're talking.
But-
And there is no litmus test for you when you're implementing any kind of zoning or subdivision for what you're saying in its purest sense. Now, it's illegal for us to purposefully do that to deprive someone of their income from their investment. You can't do that, but zoning is still legal in Missouri. And that's what we do.
Well, no
So
doubt,
I'm
yeah,
not-
yeah, no
I'm
doubt.
not sure I see the balance.
No doubt, but the thing is, to take into account trends, whatever. And I just see some of the things, with regards here is like,
Give some example.
I can't think of anywhere right now, but
But, but So when the marijuana facility was going in, the people that lived down the street said it would ruin their property values. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, actually, the situation with regards to the grow facility, is that what you're talking about?
No.
Dispensary.
The dispensary up on Olive. Is
But
that
they,
what you're
well, that,
talking about?
actually, they said that, no, basically, I'm talking about, well, it could be that.
But your example, I mean, it made sense in terms of like, if we used to allow houses to be infill or redeveloped to be larger, and then we're saying we put an ordinance in saying no more of
Mhm.
that, right?
Right.
I hear what you're saying. I agree, we couldn't target a specific person. But I will challenge, and I understand the concern. It's not targeted to individuals, targeted community. If we as a community are trying to keep affordability, are trying to keep diversity of houses, are trying to keep those things. I recognize it's not gonna always be popular, but I do think that is something I personally am comfortable with us starting to look at as long as it's broader. Similar to the fact if we said, okay, everyone used to be able to totally redevelop a property and we never required them to replant trees. And now we have an ordinance and they have to replant trees, anything they tear down. That is an economic impact. So it's like, we can do it in some situation, not others. I'm not saying it's popular. I understand the concern, it's valid. But I actually think as long as it's not targeted, I actually think it's a good thing to say we're forcing some diversity. If we see too many large houses over time, it's about keeping that balance. Personally, I understand the concern. I just think there is
Well,
an option there.
Also, I see certain things that, with regards to, you're gonna mandate certain building methods, you're gonna, you're gonna mandate, certain, well, not necessarily land use.
But the apartment before it didn't have to do it, so it's cheaper for them. So, or
Say that again?
Well, I'm saying if you're mandating solar panels, right? For
Mhm.
example. Well, the building that built 2 years ago didn't have to do that. And so now you're hurting them economically. So, but that's okay to me.
Sure,
Like,
actually, codes change all the
Mhm.
time
Right.
and existing houses have to be brought up to code, et cetera.
Yep.
That's fine. It just, I just, the economic impact of various ordinances should support, and maybe this is a better way to say it, should support individuals' investments in their homes, in their livelihood. Livelihood is basically what we're talking about with most of what we're talking about in here, but we're really not talking about it economically.
So the only way that I see to do that is whenever someone wants to do a tear down or put up a new house, it's like they have to do an economic impact. I mean, because if you put in, I'm not saying I'm against it either way, but if a street is all residential and you put in an apartment building in the center of it or a duplex, I would bet that if there's huge houses on it, like in Chevy Chase, they're not gonna like that.
I think you're.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about different things.
Going off
Hold on for just a second. So I think that this is, I think you have to debate this all the time with so many policy decisions that a city makes. I think it's, a comprehensive plan is, I'm gonna say, probably not the place to call out protection to private investment or consideration of private investment. I think that's actually baked into.
City's made up entirely of a private investment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, and I think there are protections in place that guarantee rights to private property owners.
All I'm saying is basically having read some of the comments online, et cetera, there are a number of people who said, be careful what you do, you're going to. affect
Yes, I mean,
property.
right, we heard that,
Yeah.
yes.
But you heard that, but I don't see it reflected here.
So
It might be good to have it in the text of the document, but not necessarily be a strategy.
I think that's right.
I think
and
it's
probably
really-
in the land use.
It
like,
may not be
yeah.
a strategy, but maybe it's an acid test. for
Yeah,
The rest of
It's
the
a
strategies.
consideration for any decision.
I just think, looking at the entire scope of what we've been talking about, I think that something needs to be said on the economic side of, the city should support individuals' economic well-being.
So.
How about balance?
Yeah, I think it's about every decision we make at PCDC is about finding the balance between the public good and an individual property owner's Right, and you are constantly adjusting that balance to one side or the other. And there is no black and white, there is no litmus test for it. Because each situation is unique and each one's different.
I think you're
And we
talking
did
about
that
specifics
Every
and that's
single
your,
night.
and that's,
over and over again.
and you're talking about specifics. What
No,
I'm talking
no,
about
no.
in general, as a general,
I'm talking about what guides our decision, is we have to find where that medium.
And I think you maybe two aren't talking about different things necessarily, because I think what you're saying is in the comprehensive plan, this is to write down your favorite. Is, I mean, you're talking about having balancing. I mean, it's always gonna be a balance. I mean, you're saying be explicit about that plan, say that. that you
yes.
have to Consider that people have, invested in private property and businesses, and we're gonna respect acts, because we're respecting, but as we're trying to do. Publicly, projects that are good for the general public, right?
And I don't disagree. I guess my concern is with the language, depending on how it's written, is a lot of the things in here on sustainability or businesses or making choices on that will, I don't like the term negatively, but will impact people's economics. And not in a way that they would love. If you asked an individual person, I don't want that business at all because it's gonna impact my property value a little bit. Sometimes sometimes I'm okay with that,
Yeah, right.
like,
No, I agree
mine
with that.
included.
I mean,
So,
and to be extremely specific, saying, I don't want that type of business because I own one already. Like,
yeah, and that's
sort of
not
thing.
fair, but
That-
I
yeah.
mean, to say like. Yeah, I guess I'm worried about the outliers of people saying, I only want to make choices based off my economic value going. I don't think you're saying that, but that's my
Right,
concern.
we can't
I'm
guarantee
saying
that
as a-
everyone's held.
I think, no, I think I agree with just about everything in here, if not everything. But it's just, you have to realize that a lot of these things are going to add cost and they're
Mhm.
going to add limitations to people's wants and needs.
Agreed.
And I think that somehow it needs to be spelled out to say that we support that.
Well, we're supporting that, and maybe it's the word balance again. In the
Right.
sense that as we look at all these things, we balance it with the desire that people have to maintain their economic individuality or whatever. the right term is.
Economic status.
Well,
quo,
I mean,
which is
I'd even drop the word individual. Just,
But it's gonna be a
Just-
give and take. It will be a give and take, and I think we're saying the same thing on that, right?
I think so. I think it's really getting down to semantics and how we can kind of, flesh this out. But I think I think it's an important thing to include here, just to have it written down in the plan.
Okay,
I think
think-
sometimes too, when, when we get into the plan, these are strategies to address, issues. I don't want, maybe the term is some deficiencies. When we look at the vision, we recognize the varied cost of homes, and we're embracing that diversity
Mhm.
of that. What we see in our policies, and given the market really dictating, is that we have to be cognizant of affordability. And again, I don't know what is affordable, in all of that. You'd get a different response from all 14 of us in here, but I think, in the vision, that's one of the things that we embrace. Now, does it have to go into one of those steps? I'm not sure. I mean, it's worth taking a look into.
Well, I think, to an earlier point that was made with regards to, affordability of housing. Maybe it's not single family houses, maybe it's attached houses. Look at what's happening on the other side of the street here. They are luxury condos. Okay, but actually, we've had some discussions with builders coming in. Actually, tell you this one, probably about 3-4 years ago, was it Pulte Homes came in, they wanted to take over. You remember this? And actually, we asked the question saying, okay, well, what types of incentives are there to take some of your units and make them affordable housing? And they, we had an interesting discussion about that. And we've done this a number of times. So there are a lot of different ways to manifest itself. that was taking, I think it was taking some public property and some schools, like the Merriam School on Warson, but you know, there's different ways to do this without affecting individual.
Oh, I
individuals.
Yeah. Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well, I
the
think we,
two ideas are still congruent. We can still have both.
yeah, and so I think we'll need to just put some language together and then as we share the draft with you all, just call that out so you can see if we're getting it right. But I understand the need to have something explicit about the balance between. Let's do something real quick. So I've got a couple slides just to show you the quick public engagement, not results, just a quick snapshot of what's been done. And then the process to have this plan be developed and adopted. So I wanted to make sure you see that. And then we'll go around to hear about what you're most excited about. You've seen that. That's our stuff. We're almost done. We have lots of visits to the website. Okay, we did small group outreach. I did want to make sure we mentioned that because we talked to you about it before we were going to do it. I think it was shortly before we did the focus groups. But we had a focus group of Asian residents, focus group of Black residents, and then a very small focus group of renters. But we got really confirmation of the general direction of the plan, and then some nuances that that were helpful as we thought about strategies. So continuation of development on Olive, consistent appreciation for schools across the board, desire for more gathering places in the community, and a desire for more cultural programming, which we've talked about. And I'm going to skip this only because we're short on time. Do you want me to read this? Are you, no. Developer interviews, we did some. You've got these notes in your packet, so you can spend more time and talk to me afterwards if you'd like to. Strategy survey, 336 responses so far. It is still open, not being generally promoted, but still open to try to get a few more. This is really good. To have, we had 350 surveys, vision and issue survey with a public meeting involved. To get close to that without the public meeting, really good. So this is the stuff we did, general audiences. This is the stuff that you all helped us with, a lot of this. Thank you. Thank you to everybody who handed out flyers, either with our little blitz of flyer doing or did it in your neighborhood. Thank you for everything you did. It really, it has helped. The city, by the way, has done some special mailings north of Olive that are still playing out. That's why we're leaving the survey open. But there have been some paper surveys that have been sent out specifically north of Olive to get to that that target audience. So
I do just really quickly, resoundingly from my neighborhood, I heard this survey's too long, it's too confusing. If you really want to get like my neighborhood to fill that out, pare it down and they'll do it.
it's tough, Annie. It's
I'm
tough.
just saying
The
what they
reason-
said. I'm just reporting.
I got it. And I understand it. We just can't say, what do you want to people again and again. It doesn't get us where we need to go, but yeah, I hear you. Okay. Next steps. So we're going to have an open house on the 30th of November. It's going to concentrate on the framework, these pieces that you have been reviewing. So it's going to be the vision that we've spent time with before, these goals, these strategies, and an update on the engagement that's been done. So it's going to look at the recommendations. It's going to review these draft recommendations. Public hearing in January with PCDC. So we're looking at January 18th. I think you have a specific calendar at your place. So at the meeting on January 18th, that would be a public hearing. That would be followed by a 2-week comment period where the public can look at the document and give us comments on it. And then it goes to adoption by PCDC and then a resolution in support from the city council. Jim.
Yeah, in that vein, I was looking at the community engagement layout. And while I don't relish more meetings, I see one of the things for the advisory committee on the work plan was to review the draft comprehensive plan and make recommendations. I have not seen a draft. I think we've made a lot of changes tonight. Is there something, some way we can incorporate that back into the work plan?
How about if we after we rework this based on the conversation tonight, send it out to all of you with some time to review it and provide comments before that November 30th public meeting. Is that?
So if we have a public meeting on the 30th, when, say for instance, will the planning commission expect to get a draft that they can begin to review?
Of the full plan document, it would be after the first of the year
Okay.
with all of the
That's
text
gonna be
and,
able to tell
So-
our commission
Yeah.
what to.
right. So what's, yeah.
So what is the draft plan of the open, if the plan isn't going to be available until after the first of the year, what are we
So
working?
revised, so what we've revised is that the meeting on the 30th is going to be for instead of calling it the draft plan meeting, which is how we imagined it when we put the schedule together back in January, it's going to be the draft recommendation meeting. And so we're taking forward the meat of the plan, which is the goals and the strategies and the vision. And then we're having a public comment period for the document. So we're separating those two. The draft recommendations go to the public meeting, and then the full document gets a public comment period.
Okay, then moving back to what you were going to send to this group, when can we expect to get that?
So it's on our internal calendar to finish it at the end of October. So October 27th is where we have it. So it would be the week after that.
Okay,
Yeah.
just to kind of get an idea.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes,
So the draft plan open house, that's not.
it's the draft, call it the draft recommendations open
Right,
house.
Draft recommendation,
Yeah,
so that's not in public comment at that point.
not the draft recommendations are definitely for public comment. So everything you've seen tonight for public comment that will be November 30th. This planning process results in a document that's probably 200 pages long. It's gonna be great. Very readable. You're gonna take it home. You're gonna want to read it all the time, but it's a very long document. So that full document, that's what comes to the public at the public comment period in January.
Okay, and
Yeah.
then- And then that will be online, so we can go read it online.
Hmm.
And then you said there's a 2-week comment period?
Yeah.
Can you submit comments online?
Oh, we haven't thought through exactly how comments come, but yeah, we'll have an online component for comments, and we'll have multiple ways you can offer comments to the document when it's available. Yeah.
Could we, oh, sorry, go.
Oh, one more, I'm sorry. So then usually when things go to PCDC, you usually have 2 hearings on, it, right? Before they're passed, you present it and
No.
then you have a hearing?
No,
No?
no, this is a different process, and the commission doesn't have public hearings. And those are usually reserved for the council, but in this case, state statutes requires the plan commission to conduct a public hearing in there, and that would be mid to late January.
And then I'm assuming you'll incorporate the period comments, whatever, and you give it to the council for final approval.
Yeah, no, council, this is the plan commission's document. We would ask the council to submit like a resolution of support of the plan,
But it's adopted.
but it's only for the commission.
Yeah,
Plan
that's sort of a formality.
is
PCDC approves
a
it.
state of Missouri process. And the state of Missouri invests the planning commission the power to have the public hearing. And the planning commission adopts. Because we're nice, we think it's important that the council indicate their support of the plan also.
So the time for the make public comments is those 2 weeks in January.
Yep.
And then once you approve it, then you just give it to the council for their rubber stamp, and there's no more public hearings or comments.
Once we approve it, once we finally approve it, after the hearing, and we've had our internal review, then yes.
Okay.
And part of the goal, or I think the expectation here is at that November 30th, that there's enough information to distribute to the community to find out, you know, are we in the right track? Are these the right strategies? Are these the right action steps or possible implementation things out there before it gets, they go into the wording of the paragraphs and everything. I mean, some of that will be there in there, and then to provide that opportunity through December and January. You know, that it's out in there. The commission, when they hold their first public hearing, there's nothing that states that they have to stop it on that same day. I mean, we're anticipating that that would be the date of the hearing. By that time, there would probably be at least 2 months of opportunity of the community to forward it. We hope, or the goal would be that it's not a whole revision or so. I don't think so, based on the comments I've heard today.
Yeah.
In there, that it's not.
So now that begs another question. So after the comment period is done, it almost seems like you need to allow some time in there if you have to make any revisions.
There's a week in there.
Oh, there is.
There's a week
okay.
in there. And
Okay.
there's only a week because we think we will have had it out. Because we have the meeting on November 30th, where the ideas are really presented to the community and they have a chance for feedback through that public meeting. So that's what, like, we'd love for you to share with folks. There are really 2 opportunities. The best one, our favorite one, is the November 30th, because we're going to be
Okay.
sharing the ideas that are going into the plan. And then we'll write up the plan document itself, which will have this comment period after the first of the year. So we want comments then too, but we really would rather have the substantive comments to the ideas in
I'm
the
just-
plan on
I'm
November
just
30th.
Trying to
Yeah.
understand the process so I can tell people.
Yeah, I know.
So-
So tell people 2 opportunities, November 30th, draft recommendations. And then a public comment period after the first of the year on a long plan document that describes those ideas.
Okay.
Yeah,
How many meetings do we have left as a committee?
this is your last one.
So with that being said, because I don't know if I'm speaking for everyone, but I'm kind of tired. Is there like another day we can meet for like maybe like an hour or something, like what you said, like revise within like the month of November or something?
I'm gonna look to other people to make that decision for, well, I mean, like, let's ask the committee itself first, like, because, yeah, is that something, do you all want to meet again? I think, like, I proposed sending out a draft of the recommendations to you all for review online. So I think that it would be in lieu of, would be to come back together to look at the revised set of recommendations, the goals and strategies. So like a revised version of what we looked at tonight.
Our goal as a steering committee is to basically help put this plan together. As people who live here. And I think we've done a pretty good job at that. I mean, raising things that you may or may not know.
Mhm.
So I kind of think it's in your hands. And is that the way you see it?
That's the way the process defined it. Yeah, so, and that's, I'm comfortable with that, if you all are comfortable with that, but you're our advisory committee, so I kind of don't want to make that call. I feel comfortable taking what you've discussed here, doing a new version, which I share with you before that November 30th meeting. I'm comfortable with that process, but I want you all to feel comfortable with that too.
I'd
And
like to
city
make a
folk.
suggestion
Okay,
that I've got lots of questions in my own mind about how it's gonna flesh out. So I'd like to see the draft before
Making a
and have some time to cogitate on it a bit before I would want to decide, yes, we need to meet or no, we don't. So my suggestion is let's wait till we get that document, have a chance to look at it.
Okay.
And then we can decide if there are things in there that we really need to make the effort to come together to talk about. Or maybe it's just something we could give Shaki back our feedback. I mean, there's,
okay,
I agree with Carol, that if you get the same feedback from everybody, there's no reason to meet again. But if I say something really, I don't know, off the wall and everybody else is like a complete opposite of what I say, then it's like, well, maybe we should talk about this again or something.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
feel like we know the parameters of what we're getting. And it's just a matter of,
but you need to see it.
we need to
to
see it,
know
we need to
if
see it,
you-
but I don't feel like we're gonna need to wordsmith it.
Mhm,
I've had cities wanna do that, I don't think it's necessary here.
mhm.
But I'd like to see the document before I
Yeah.
made any decisions about, yes, we really need to get together,
Okay.
and talk.
That's, yeah, that's fair. And then I think we could just, like Carlos and I can talk about what our recommendation is and then might get, call a handful of you to say, here's what we're thinking. What do you think? Or just do a vote, but we'll get back in touch with you to make the decision. And so just to be clear, the document that you will be getting will be like this, right? Gonna be like this. It's like the short thing. It's not your long thing yet. Okay.
While it drives me nuts, do we need to worry about open meeting regs if we are talking together on things? I mean, I've learned so much in the last 3 years over open meetings. Do we need to have something? I'd look to the,
I mean, if you and I were to sit down and talk about the plan.
but if more than 3 of us sit down and talk about the plan, then,
There's more than 7 people on this.
pardon me?
Is there more than 7? Yeah, there's more than 7. Yes. It would have to be more than 3.
Okay. Oh, that's,
4.
I'm playing my other hat.
The numbers change, right? Okay. Any more questions about the process? They were good questions. So, okay, well, we'll do this like speed dating, okay? Real fast. You don't have to take a long time. And I know we're over a little bit, but I'd like to hear from you on this, and then I'm gonna collect your card. So Annie, would you start? What are you most excited about?
I am most excited to see policies that promote the balance of needs across our community. I know it won't come for a while, but
Okay, thank you, Annie.
You liked it all. Yeah, I liked it all. I liked all the ideas. I liked all the suggestions. And they came from different walks of life and different ideas, and I think it's gonna be a good thing.
All right, thank you, Eric.
When I first started coming here, I was really my focus in work has been on housing, on nonprofit housing. So I was happy to see, I don't know if I'm excited, but I was happy to see that others also put housing and the housing affordability, not necessarily affordable housing, but housing affordability
Yeah,
to the top of the, I guess, strategies and concerns. So that's what I'm excited about, because I think that the housing is a driving force on so many fronts, from economic to diversity, inclusion, and environment. So I was glad to see that.
yeah.
So.
Okay. Good.
I'm
Brian?
excited about a renewed focus in this plan on strategies specifically around DE&I and sustainability.
Okay,
I'm
you.
most excited about the future of Olivet and what it will do for future generations.
cool.
So I'm excited about the idea of doing a stormwater master plan for all of that.
Says the planner.
So stormwater is one of my things. And as our climate continues to change, it becomes more and more of a problem here for us. And I think doing a master plan to deal with those problems and help us figure out how we can find some balance in doing solutions is a good thing.
Okay, great.
I like strategy number 2 under chapter 3, healthy community, embrace the diversity in both public and private development. I think we all know, we have a special thing going here in Olivet, so it's really good to let other people know just how good it is.
I agree,
Yes, sir.
exactly what he said.
Okay.
First off, I would like to thank everyone for being here, and I really enjoyed doing this. But as in terms for all of it, Definitely what the future holds when it comes to the community and sense of belonging per individual to the whole community, like that bridge, gap, that bridge the gap, that's the right term. Other than that, technology use, because technology is always innovating, so how we use it as a community. And what I said earlier, ESGs.
Okay, Stephanie, yeah.
Well, we're long overdue for an update on the strategic plan, and I'm looking forward to this plan, hoping that it will reflect our concerns for the environment and the emphasis on non-vehicle transportation.
Okay, great. Jim.
And I like the approach to defining livability and all of that for the future.
Yeah. Am I not supposed to? Good.
It's nice to be involved in point of collection.
Like it, thank you. Yeah. And you wrote that down so I can get that for word for sure. And I think we're recording, so if I missed it, I can, good. Don, how about you?
This is an amazing plan. I appreciate all your time. It's very valuable to the city, to get your opinions. Everybody has spent a lot of time talking to people, and hopefully that's made us more cohesive as a community already. So I'm looking forward to that continue.
Yeah, great. Carlos, final word.
Engagement, community engagement in this plan. That was the primary goal of the request for qualifications. And I think we've exceeded our expectation.
Okay, good.
So as the newest person to this entire process, I would just like to thank you all for your time and efforts and dedication when you started this in March. So I am most excited really to see the community's response to the plan and the framework, and really all of your hard work.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everybody. So, so now we get the fun part about writing it all up. So we'll be working on integrating all your ideas into the framework, getting that back out to you. So you have time to review it for us before the November meeting. And that'll be our last push for public involvement. I say second to last, we'll have the comment period, but we really want as much as we can get at the November 30th public meeting. So we'll be leaning on you again to help spread the word. Carlos?
Yeah, just two things. Again, this is not the official end of the advisory committee. We still will look for your support, especially as we get the towards the open house and the public hearing process. And then one of the things I think when the plan is presented or posted before the plan commission, we'd like the members of the advisory committee to be present. And you are reporting back to the commission on this process. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. And we'll probably look to a couple of you maybe to see if you want to be spokespersons for the group to make that kind of, and he's like, are you volunteering? I don't know. We'll figure out who the victims are, or ask for volunteers, I'm sure. But it is nice to have that continuity between the advisory committee and the deliberations that took place, and then going before PCDC and the council as they're looking at this too and moving it forward. So, all right. I'm gonna say at least another week. We're kind of the truth is we're keeping an eye on how they come in, because we don't want to shut it off if we're getting a lot of responses. But it's gonna dive, because like as soon as we stop promoting, it'll dive. So I think I'm gonna say about a week. Yeah.
If it shuts off before, let me know.
Why don't you just send you a personal invitation? I'm about to really close it. Is that what we're saying? You need a phone call? Anybody else?
Any other questions or comments?
I do have one, just
Yeah.
So it's the format's an open house, but as a presentation with if I
Yeah.
tell others, neighbors. so
There will
it's
be a
like
presentation.
PowerPoint, okay.
Yes, there'll be a PowerPoint and we'll take some questions. Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
There's no other further questions or comments. We'll adjourn at 8:48.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Me to fall in. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
We're turning these in.
Drop them on there.
Did
Thank
it.
you, everybody. Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Oh,